Have you noticed moments when your memory feels slightly different than it used to? Not dramatically changed, but just enough to catch your attention. Moments where a name that takes longer to come to mind, a detail that slips away and returns later, a pause where there once wasn't one? These moments often arrive quietly. They don't announce themselves as problems. They simply invite a question, and that question can feel heavier than the moment itself. Today's conversation is about understanding when memory changes deserve attention, without fear, without urgency, and without assuming the worst. It's about learning how to listen to your mind with calm curiosity instead of worry, and how awareness can feel steady rather than alarming. Memory is not a single function. It's a collection of processes working together, shaped by experience, emotion, health, rest, and rhythm. As you age, it's natural for some of those processes to shift slightly, just as vision, balance, and energy do. One of the most common changes is speed. You may still know something clearly, but it takes longer to surface. The information hasn't disappeared. It's simply moving through a different pathway. That slowing can feel unsettling if you expect memory to behave the same way it always has. But slower recall is often a sign of adaptation, not decline. The brain continues to work, just with a different pace. What matters most is not isolated moments, but patterns over time. Occasional forgetfulness happens to nearly everyone, whereas repeated difficulty navigating familiar parts of daily life is something worth noticing. There's an important difference between forgetting where you placed your glasses and forgetting what glasses are for, and between missing a word and losing the thread of a conversation entirely. Understanding that difference helps replace fear with clarity. Have you found yourself monitoring your memory more closely lately? That awareness doesn't mean something is wrong. Often, it reflects care for your independence and confidence, which are deeply human priorities. Many people assume that any memory change points directly to serious illness. In reality, most memory shifts are influenced by everyday factors that are often overlooked. Sleep quality plays a major role. Emotional stress, even when it feels manageable, affects concentration and recall. So does dehydration, skipped meals, and long stretches without mental rest. Let's be honest, every one of us has experienced this. There are days when life moves quickly, and you may push through without pausing. A light breakfast becomes no breakfast. Water gets replaced by coffee. The day fills with tasks, conversations, and decisions. Later, your mind feels foggy. Words don't land as smoothly. Focus drifts. By evening, you may feel unusually tired or irritable. Nothing serious has happened, yet your brain is signaling strain. In moments like this, memory isn't failing. Instead, it's responding to load. These are the kinds of experiences that remind us that memory reflects how we live, not just how we age. And when conditions improve, clarity often follows. That's why context matters so much. Memory changes tied to sleep, stress, illness, or routine disruption often improve once those factors are addressed. Changes that continue steadily, regardless of circumstance, deserve a different kind of attention. This distinction helps remove urgency from the conversation. Attention does not mean alarm, it means observation with care. When memory changes begin to interfere with familiar routines, that's often the point where curiosity becomes useful. Difficulty managing finances you once handled easily. Repeated confusion with appointments. Trouble following conversations that were once comfortable. These experiences don't appear suddenly. They develop gradually, giving space to notice them thoughtfully. Have you ever wondered where that line is between normal change and something worth checking? It's a common question, and it deserves a gentle answer. That line is rarely drawn by a single moment. It's shaped by consistency, impact, and progression. What repeats, what affects daily life, what feels different over time rather than from one busy day to the next. When memory-related conditions develop, they often include changes beyond recall alone. Language may feel harder to access. Judgment may feel less steady. Orientation in familiar places may feel subtly off. These changes tend to unfold slowly, not dramatically, and early awareness often opens doors to support rather than closing them. If you find yourself unsure, Involving a healthcare provider can be a steadying step, not because something is assumed to be wrong, but because clarity restores balance. Many memory concerns are linked to factors that can be addressed: medication interactions, sleep disorders, nutrient deficiencies, mood changes that quietly affect concentration. A thoughtful evaluation helps sort what's reversible from what needs monitoring. It replaces uncertainty with understanding. Family conversations can feel uncomfortable, but they often bring relief. Sharing observations allows for perspective, reassurance, and shared awareness rather than silent worry. Have you considered who you would talk to first if something felt off? That reflection alone can reduce anxiety because it reminds you that support doesn't begin with diagnosis. It begins with connection, with conversation, with the understanding that you don't have to interpret these changes alone. Another helpful lens is how memory fits into the larger picture of aging. Memory doesn't exist in isolation. It's woven into physical health, emotional resilience, and daily rhythm. As priorities shift with age, some details matter less. The brain releases what no longer feels essential. That doesn't mean capacity is shrinking. It often means focus is refining. You may notice that while certain facts take longer to recall, judgment, intuition, and perspective feel stronger. Experience becomes integrated, less dependent on surface detail. There's a quiet wisdom in that shift. Memory becomes less about speed and more about meaning. Have you noticed that some things no longer need to be remembered consciously because they've become part of how you move through life? That's not loss, that's integration. Still, caring for memory remains important, not through pressure or perfection, but through consistency and support. Keep in mind that regular movement supports blood flow to the brain. Restorative sleep allows memory consolidation. Meaningful engagement keeps neural pathways active, and social connection supports emotional balance. These ideas often appear in senior health tips because they're foundational, not trendy. They support the brain the same way steady habits support the heart: gently, reliably, and over time. Stress management matters too. Chronic stress narrows attention and disrupts recall. Creating moments of calm throughout the day helps the mind reset. You might recognize this on days when tension quietly builds without you noticing. The shoulders stay tight. The breath becomes shallow. By afternoon, it feels harder to concentrate on even simple tasks. When you finally pause, step outside, or sit in stillness for a few minutes, the mind begins to settle. Clarity slowly returns. That shift doesn't mean the stress disappears. It means your nervous system has space to recalibrate. Memory and focus begin working with you again instead of against you. Calm doesn't require major change. It may be a quiet morning routine, a short walk, a pause before the next task. There is also value in recognizing emotional load. Grief, worry, responsibility, and change all occupy mental space. Sometimes memory feels strained not because the mind is weakening, but because it's carrying more than it used to. Acknowledging that weight can be deeply relieving. Giving yourself permission to rest mentally can restore clarity more effectively than trying harder to remember, as effort is not always the solution. Self-compassion plays a huge role here as well. Worry about memory can interrupt recall more than memory itself. When you allow your mind to move at its own pace, words and details often surface naturally. Confidence supports memory, and fear interferes with it. There's also something important to remember about attention itself. The brain is not designed to operate at full focus all the time. Periods of mental wandering, slower thinking, or quiet reflection are not failures. They are part of a healthy rhythm. Just as the body needs rest between movements, the mind benefits from moments that are less demanding. When life allows fewer pauses, memory can feel strained simply because it hasn't had room to settle. Creating that room doesn't mean doing less. It means allowing space within what you already do. This can be as simple as finishing one task before starting the next, or letting a thought complete itself instead of rushing ahead. These small adjustments often restore a sense of ease that supports recall naturally, without force. As this conversation unfolds, It's natural to feel a mix of reassurance and reflection. Learning when memory changes deserve attention doesn't mean waiting for something to go wrong. It means staying engaged with your health, informed without being overwhelmed, aware without being afraid. Have you noticed how understanding brings steadiness, even around serious topics? Knowledge doesn't have to feel heavy. It can feel grounding. Memory changes deserve attention when they affect daily life consistently, when they progress rather than fluctuate, when they persist beyond temporary strain. Attention does not mean panic. It means care. Most importantly, memory does not define your worth, identity, or capability. Aging is not a process of disappearance. It's a process of adaptation, depth, and continued growth. Your mind carries a lifetime of experience, problem-solving, resilience, and connection. That doesn't vanish because recall slows now and then. So rather than asking what you might be losing, it can be more grounding to ask what you're carrying forward. And that shift in perspective supports confidence instead of fear. Every day is another chance to care for the body that's carried you this far. Keep learning, keep moving, keep believing in your own strength. Because aging isn't slowing down, it's leveling up. If today's message resonated, take a moment to subscribe, leave a thought in the comments, or share this video with someone who could use a little encouragement. Because together, we're proving that aging well isn't the exception, it's the standard.